Invitational winner, which that was his card back when he won the Invitational.
Yes.
A very old school pro player, and because of that, I'd say unsurprising to see he's chosen Rug Delver as his deck here in Legacy.
Yeah, apparently this is a deck that he has played more than once in Legacy Opens of late, and it looks like we're underway with Chris on the play with a turn 1 Delver of Secrets.
Yeah, that's Rug Delver, kind of this evolution of, Grow into Canadian Threshold into now just Rug Delver.
Yeah. So, Gerard's turn. I'm assuming he kept since he allowed Chris to cast a spell.
And just because he's Gerard Fabiano, I'm assuming that he kept his 7-card hand.
Gerard, I never mulligan. He starts with Caracas into Swords to Plowshares for that Delver of Secrets.
Yeah, Gerard correctly identifies that the Rug Delver deck actually only plays 12 creatures. Getting one off the board as soon as you can is really important. He may get punished a little bit for playing Caracas instead of just playing, a basic land here, as, remember, Rug is really a resource denial deck.
Yeah, known for playing 4 Wastelands. Yeah.
Exactly.
And a second copy of Delver of Secrets will come down on Chris's second turn as he cracks a Flooded Strand to find a tropical island. And Nimble Mongoose.
All right, so 3 creatures in the first 2 turns for Chris Pikula. Usually, that's all the creatures you'll end up seeing hit the battlefield.
That's a full 25% of his win conditions. Stoneforge Mystic for Gerard, and that will let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, as far as what he's playing. That is, if Chris wasn't aware already. Stoneforge Mystic, printed originally in Worldwake in early 2010, and has made quite the impact in Legacy, in big part thanks to that card right there that Gerard just tutored up, Batterskull.
Yeah, both these decks kind of getting their signature draws, as we saw. Chris Pikula's deck, the Rug Delver deck, having 2 Delver of Secrets this game, really just showing these 1-drops that grow into 3-power creatures, whereas the Deathblade deck really featuring, efficient removal spell plus this great engine in Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, Gerard's mana base, not the typical start for that deck, but it's still able to get the turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic, and that's really all he could ask for at this point.
So for those of you who haven't been too up on the legacy scene, you might be wondering why it's called Esper Deathblade instead of Esper Stoneblade. Deathblade is, in the last month, a deck that's really just picked up off the ground. Todd Anderson winning 2 Star City Legacy Opens in the last month piloting this deck. It's basically based off the inclusion of 2 black cards in the Esper deck, being Deathrite Shaman and Dark Confidant.
So as we see there, Chris, during his upkeep, before his draw, decides to brainstorm so he can definitely flip that Delver, which he does off of a Dismember, and he immediately uses that Dismember to take out the Stoneforge Mystic, and now he's going to crash in for 4 here with the Insectile Aberration and Nimble Mongoose, and then use Wasteland to take care of that Caracas. So Gerard's side of the board getting to the point where it's going to be tough for him to come back. He's got a single Wasteland in play and a Wasteland in hand, and I think he may not have any other lands available.
Yeah, so this is why I really like the Rug Delver deck. It really showcases one of its strengths, in that every card that Chris Pikula has played this game so far has cost either 1 or 0 mana, depending on, Wasteland essentially is a spell at 0 here. He's cast, 2 Delver of Secrets, a Brainstorm, a Dismember, and a Nimble Mongoose. It really banks on the ability that it can play cards and land. It can play alt cards faster than its opponent and ride that to victory.
So Gerard's going to go ahead and Wasteland both of Chris's lands. So Armageddon has just happened on board. The thing here, though, is Chris is the one with the threats. Usually the one who has the threats is the one that wants the Armageddon. I think if I'm Chris, this is fine.
What Gerard's done here is he didn't have any other lines, so he took this line. I think he's aware that this isn't a good one at all.
Sure,
but
I imagine he is.
Because he has 2 Swords to Plowshares in his hand, I think what he's trying to do here is hoping that he can draw into Swords for Delver and then stabilize. It hasn't panned out, but if his next draw was a white producing mana, he probably would have been sitting pretty well in this game.
So he finds a land, an Underground Sea, casts a Deathrite Shaman. Yeah, unfortunately that land does not produce white, and so he is unable to deal with that Delver this turn.
Yeah, I don't know if he has anything. If he had something that produced green as well, he could start gaining life, but I think it's just too little too late as he's at 1 life here. There's not a way for him to hold off this Delver of Secrets.
And he's taking a look at his graveyard. So one of well, we'll talk about it after this game. as Gerard decides exactly what he wants to do here. So Deathrite Shaman can also add mana if Gerard
right, and I
wants
think
to take
the
advantage
more
of
important thing here is that it can exile the Wasteland to Swords to Plowshares, the Delver of Secrets. What'll be interesting is what is the count on Chris Pikula's graveyard? Remember, this Nimble Mongoose is it's at right now at 6 cards, so one more card will make this Nimble Mongoose into a 7.
So he is going to go ahead and add a white mana to his pool with the Deathrite Shaman, removing a looks like a Volcanic Island from Chris's graveyard, and using Swords to Plowshares to deal with that Delver of Secrets finally.
Yeah, and just in time here. So it really showcases how Rug Delver, I guess before the printing of Deathrite Shaman, was really the dominant deck here in Legacy. Gerard's showing you right there how Delver of Secrets has really helped to fix that problem. You saw it doing double duty in that it's great and it's fixing Gerard's own mana, and it's reducing the graveyard size on Chris Pikula's deck.
So a Lightning Bolt from Chris meets a Daze from Gerard. It would have been a game-ending Lightning Bolt there, but Gerard has an answer.
Yeah, and that is the 7th card in the graveyard because he drew a fetch land and not just the dual land. Gerard's going to have to chump block.
And he does, puts the 2nd copy of Deathrite Shaman in front of the Nimble Mongoose. And kind of as you were mentioning there, Rug Delver was a big deck, but after Deathrite Shaman and also to another extent Abrupt Decay, both of those cards printed in Return to Ravnica, and Deathrite Shaman does a great job of dealing with graveyards, and Abrupt Decay hits almost everything that is every permanent that's non-land in the Rug Delver deck. And then, of course, not in this matchup, but Rest in Peace, another big one. That's
right. So what we're seeing here is that Gerard, the loss of Deathrite Shaman is really coming back to get him. If he had the 2 Deathrite Shamans available, we would have seen Gerard exiling lands to make green mana, using green mana to life gain himself out of range of these creatures. Because he had to chump block with that Deathrite Shaman, though, he's kind of on this line where he's going to be chump blocking all his creatures. And Nimble Mongoose, because it has Shroud, it's going to be pretty hard for him to deal with.
Yeah, the Swords to Plowshares in Gerard's hand does nothing against the Mongoose. And Gerard can't cast Thoughtseize. That's another dead card. He's got a Jace, Spell Pierce, and I'm not sure what that other card is. The one between the Jace and the Spell Pierce. Looks like...
I think we're going to see it in
it's a Dark Confidant. So that's another
so
scary
I think that's what we're going to see. We see Dark Confidant. Gerard at 1 casting Dark Confidant.
Likely just for a chump blocker.
Yeah, we'll see. Chris may just... Yeah, he's going to ponder here. He may just not attack.
Sure.
It would be interesting to see whether Chris would rather eat the Dark Confidant or leave Fate up to the top of the deck.
Yeah. Anything with a mana cost of greater than 0 will kill Gerard off of that Dark Confidant. That is the Modern Masters Dark Confidant.
Yeah. So Pikula then ponders into, finally, for him, what is this? Another land. And he's just so far ahead, it's very difficult to stop a Rug Delver deck from punching through 1 damage. Gerard's making a lot of good plays here to stabilize, but how he's going to actually pull out of the game, now that especially, is still pretty difficult for him.
Right. So, just a note, looks like Gerard has 2 copies of Meddling Mage, 3 copies of Meddling Mage in his sideboard. I wonder if it's the original Pikula version or if it's the reprint version with the incorrect art.
Yeah, Chris Pikula, not exactly a fan of the new version. His face is on the first one. The second one not only had a new face, but also had a gender change to it.
Yeah, so Mongoose does attack, and Dark Confidant gets in the way. And so Gerard's going to...
Would have it killed him? And the card certainly would have killed him. I think it looks like when he tapped it, he comments that on his own.
Yeah, it would have killed me. I still think Gerard's really in rough shape right now.
Yeah, he's going to have to chump block this
here.
turn. And because Chris has so much counter magic in hand, it seems pretty unfair. And now a Wasteland, it seems unlikely that Gerard can draw anything. Yeah, but between Wastelanding Gerard's final land and having Daze in his hand, I don't see how Gerard can actually cast a spell.
So Gerard, I mean, it's not really going to get him much further, but he could chump block, then remove a land to add a white, and Swords to Plowshares his own Shaman to gain a life.
Right, that still keeps him in range of one hit of the Nimble Mongoose.
It doesn't do enough, but it's a line. Yeah,
I guess it's something he can do. I don't know.
Yeah, how many cards are in Chris's graveyard? Because if that's a 1/1, if that's only 7,
plenty more.
You think it's more now?
Yeah, well, especially because it's 7.
It's
Remember,
exactly
Wasteland
7.
is going to add an 8th to it when he chooses to use it. He also can cast Instance. There's really no way that Gerard's going to keep him off.
Yeah, and also there's a stifle from Chris too. Apparently, it looked to me like Gerard was actually trying to do exactly that.
Well, it's a. Is it a
mana ability?
I believe it's a mana ability, so I'm not sure you can stifle it.
And I think that may be exactly what we're freezing on here. Gerard going to read Stifle. It's kind of a last-ditch effort at this point, but we do want to get it correct. But yeah, having 7 makes that play sort of relevant. He's going to actually stifle he's going to actually Spell Pierce the Stifle.
Okay.
And so that's going to, I guess, make it all irrelevant, but so.
Well, it really depends on what he's.
Yeah, he's going to remove that.
The mana really does work. It may be that Chris is actually just fine. He could just be adding the Stifle to his graveyard for extra threshold if he's worried about losing threshold. It seems to me that he shouldn't be because of Wasteland.
Right. And I think, Chris went down to 6 cards, but the Stifle made it 7, and now that's 8 with the Wasteland. Gerard at 1 life with 0 permanence.
Alright, if he does play the land, remember, Chris with the days. And swing. Alright, Gerard, a valiant effort. He's able to stall the game for about 5 turns there, but never able to turn the corner.
Putting up a heck of a fight. So Chris Pikula takes game 1 here in round 3 of the StarCityGames.com's Legacy Open, live from Philadelphia. These guys are going to go to the sideboard. I don't see much of a reason for Gerard to bring in Meddling Mage unless he just wants to tilt Chris.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. So he does have 3 copies of Meddling Mage, and Gerard, I'd say is the kind of player who may actually make that play, just for the irony of the situation. I wouldn't put that play past him.
No, not at all.
Regardless, looking at the match. I mean, this is one of the I'd say standard matchups of the metagame right now.
Sure. Yeah, these are both big decks. I did mention Rest in Peace, Abrupt Decay, and Deathrite Shaman being 3 big cards that were printed in the last year to make Rug Delver a less appealing option, but it is still a strong deck. It still can fight through, as you saw. I mean, Gerard had several copies of Deathrite Shaman, which did kind of make things a little difficult for Chris, but most of that game, Chris pretty much had it. It was a matter of time for him to just draw a burn spell or finally just get in with the Mongoose.
Well, the thing is that Chris is still ahead, and what Rug Delver's great at doing is it's getting ahead and staying ahead.
Right, and it gets ahead fast.
Right. So all the cards in his hand, whether they were Dazes, Force of Will, all work to that effect. It's just to help clamp down that board presence he had with the 3/3 Shroud.
Now, I'd say both of these decks actually can be considered, some of the more fair decks in the format, for the most part. I mean, they're just kind of playing creatures, and Gerard's got a little bit bigger, more of a control style deck. He's going for the long game. He can win with Jace the Mind Sculptor, but essentially, not doing anything ridiculously unfair.
Well, each of them has a couple things that are not entirely fair. I'd say Chris Pikula, Rug Delver's playing a bunch of 3-power creatures. Like a 3/2 flyer for one isn't an entirely fair card. On top of that, Wasteland, and especially in Chris's deck, Wasteland and Stifle together start to kind of turn that corner. Gerard has a little bit of unfairness of his own. He's not actually casting Batter Skulls. He's using them with Stoneforge Mystic.
Right.
So he's not entirely paying for his spells. But you're right.
But in the
these
scope
aren't
of
combo.
Legacy.
These aren't combo decks. They actually are paying for their spells for the most part.
Yeah. In the scope of Legacy, these are some of the more fair decks.
They are not combo decks.
Just dudes, even if they are a little larger than normal. It's not. They're not casting Emrakul for mana.
Yep.
Tarmogoyf, while a great card and a great bargain at 2 mana, can certainly be blanked, especially with a card like Deathrite Shaman.
Deathrite Shaman and Rest in Peace, things that are starting to really hurt the value of Tarmogoyf out of some of these decks. The control decks have much better answers for it right now.
A card we haven't seen in a while that also, sometimes it was taking the place of Tarmogoyf in some decks, and it also used as an answer to Tarmogoyf, is coming up in M14, the Scavenging Ooze.
Right, so Scavenging Ooze is a card which we first saw a fair amount of play in Maverick, when Maverick was at the height of its deck, at the height about a year ago. Yeah, now it's actually going to be included in M14, which means I think probably the most important constructed thing about that is that it means it'll be added to the modern card pool.
Yeah, and that's going to be another tool for you modern players out there. Modern Masters giving another big push to modern, and I think Scavenging Ooze, and we'll see what else. I think the door is open for a number of other cards to be reprinted to help modern. We saw the Shocklands printed in Return to Ravnica block to help that format. But we're going to go right back to Legacy. Gerard Fabiano on the play. Game 2 leads with a Deathrite Shaman. Chris has a Flooded Strand. Passes back, so no turn 1 play from Chris. And we see a Hydroblast from Gerard off the top. And a Flooded Strand. Cracked by Gerard, and Chris is going to respond by cracking a Flooded Strand of his own. He may have the Stifle.
So when you look at how these players board in this matchup, the thing is that Rogue Delver dictates the tempo of the matchup so much, the players don't really want to board in cards that cost more than 1 mana in the matchup, maybe 2 if the card's really impactful. Both players board in as a result. I mean, first, certainly out of Gerard's deck, he boards in Hydroblast or Blue Elemental Blast.
I use those terms interchangeably, unfortunately.
Sure. And, well, I mean, and for the most part, they are interchangeable. Yeah. And Chris Pikula, and by the same token, may even defensively board in Red Elemental Blasts.
So you see the Stifle from Chris deals with that fetch land, but Gerard able to produce 2 mana anyway off of the Deathrite Shaman to cast a Dark Confidant. Chris is going to deal with that with Dismember. Dismember, a card that was hugely popular in Legacy a couple years ago, and I feel like you don't see that card as often anymore. But we're seeing it. We've seen it twice already in this match. Polluted Delta from Gerard. This one looks like it's going to successfully search for a land. And it looks like a tropical island is the choice here. Yep.
So it's been really good about Gerard's draw here. I mean, other than the fact he's on the play, which is very important about Rogue Delver, is the fact that he had a Deathrite Shaman, which is working as a Birds of Paradise here, has really helped him get enough resources that all of Chris Pikula's cards aren't having the effect that he normally wants them to have.
Right. So after clearing away that Dismember with the Dark Confidant, Gerard casts a Stoneforge Mystic on turn 3 here off of the Deathrite Shaman and a Tropical Island, leaving up an Underground Sea. Finds a Batterskull and passes back. So Deathrite Shaman and Stoneforge Mystic in play on Gerard's side of the board. Chris with just a Volcanic Island. And there's a Delver of Secrets. Namesake of the deck. And Chris is hoping to flip that next turn. So Gerard, for his turn, has a 3rd land. Looks like he's got another... Oh, he's actually got that Batterskull. He's going to go ahead and main phase it. And Batterskull comes down.
Yeah, so the main phase Batterskull does mean if Chris Pikula in his sideboard does have Ancient Grudges, it's possible that he'll have a chance here to try and destroy the Batterskull. And we do see in his hand what I believe is an Ancient Grudge.
There you see a Polluted Delta from Chris. He's going to go ahead and tutor up a land here, or fetch a land.
So we actually have a clarification. I wanted to talk about a rules thing from last game. We were talking about the stifling of Deathrite Shaman. So according to comprehensive rules, what defines a mana ability? A mana ability, we've been quoted rule 6051A, for those of you who are judges at home. A mana ability is a mana ability if it meets three criteria. If it doesn't have a target, if it could put mana into a player's mana pool when it resolves, and if it's not a loyalty ability. So because of that, Deathrite Shaman actually is not a mana ability because it targets a card in a graveyard, so it is a legal target. I mean, it's a legal target for Stifle.
Okay. So in the meantime, Ancient Grudge targets that Batterskull. Blue Elemental Blast tries to counter it, but a Daze, I believe, was used to counter the Blue Elemental Blast. So Ancient Grudge resolves, Batterskull is gone, and Gerard is left with just the Stoneforge Mystic and the Deathrite Shaman.
Gerard being punished a little bit for an aggressive play, and I think this is why he made the play, is he realized while he may lose the Batterskull, it would cause such a counter fight that he would be able to resolve Jace the Mind Sculptor. And as often is the case in Legacy, resolve Jace the Mind Sculptor is almost the same as winning the game. So we're going to see Gerard get scores of value off this.
So Jace is going to brainstorm for Gerard, and the board state right now is Gerard Fabiano, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Deathrite Shaman, Stoneforge Mystic, and 4 lands. Chris Pikula, Delver of Secrets, unflipped, no lands. And the Delver's gone now because Gerard just cast the Swords to Plowshares.
So Gerard, when he was looking through Chris's deck, I believe he was checking to see if there's a land in Chris's deck. Especially in this matchup, whenever possible, Gerard's going to try to use Deathrite Shaman to exile Chris Pikula's lands to keep him off of threshold for a possible Nimble Mongoose.
Right, exactly. As we saw that Nimble Mongoose won Chris game 1. So now a red Elemental Blast from Chris is going to deal with that Jace the Mind Sculptor in short order, and Wasteland from Gerard is going to deal with Chris's fresh volcanic island.
And Chris has got to feel pretty happy that he got rid of a Jace after that only one brainstorm off the Jace happened. That can be a lot, certainly can be a lot worse.
So a second copy of Deathrite Shaman for Gerard and Nimble Mongoose for Chris. These players playing very quickly now, but Chris, able to keep replacing lands after losing them, is now able to cast a Nimble Mongoose off of a tropical island. Ancient Grudge exiled off of that Deathrite Shaman.
Right, if you're going to choose an instant, you're going to want to choose the one with flashback.
Yeah.
It's not, Gerard probably does have a second piece of equipment. It's likely that he's kept in the Umezawa's Jite.
And a Ponder from Chris. I think he found 3 lands. Oh no, I'm sorry, there was a Mongoose in there as well. So it's Mongoose, Tropical Island, Wasteland that he is pondering. His hand looks like Brainstorm. I missed it.
Okay.
Sorry, I looked down at the wrong deck list. I think he's got Rough Tumble
Yeah, he does
in his
have,
hand.
Yeah, he has Rough Tumble in his hand at the moment.
And possibly a Lightning Bolt. I know it was a red card in his hand, but okay, looking at his graveyard, the red Elemental Blast looks like it was exiled by the Deathrite Shaman. Ponder also removed. Ponder and red Elemental Blast, leaving Chris with I think just 5 cards in the graveyard.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4,
This
5.
is really, I think, the beauty of Deathrite Shaman is not only is it a mana, it's a Birds of Paradise in a lot of matchups, but it's the way the deck you can win the entire game with your Birds of Paradise, which is, all Gerard has to do is he can play these cards to get ahead in the early game, and then they become his win con. All he has to do is play answers in the meantime.
Yeah, Gerard won that game on the back of 3 Squires.
Right.
You saw there, he just kept removing cards with the Deathrite Shamans to burn Chris when he could, and swinging in with the Stoneforge Mystic. That Nimble Mongoose never grew to 3/3, or if it did, it was just a momentary growth there. Chris, I don't think, ever reached threshold. So Gerard is able to even things up here in round 3 versus Chris Pikula, and we're going to see with Chris on the play in game 3 if he's able to defeat Gerard, or if Gerard and his Deathrite Shamans are able to keep the Canadian threshold deck at bay.
Yeah, once again, the hard part here is going to be that Chris Pikula's on the play. And as we saw there, that turn 1 Deathrite Shaman on the play for Gerard was so powerful. When it's on the draw, Chris has so many ways of dealing with it. He has Lightning Bolts, he has Dazes, he has Dismember.
How many Dismembers is Chris running? I'm just
just the one.
Just the one,
so yeah, a Dismember. He has a Chain Lightning as well.
Yeah, that Dismember showed up in both games 1 and game 2. So I just was wondering if he might have access to more. So it's like just 1. I think that's usually the accepted number when you do see Dismember in Legacy. A nice 1 mana removal spell, deals with a lot of different threats, and is able to be cast for any color, of course at the cost of 4 life. But in Legacy, a lot of decks really don't care about losing that 4 life. They're doing all kinds of damage to themselves with their fetch lands and Gitaxian probes.
Right. Well, especially in this matchup, it's not from Chris's side of the match, his own life total is not as relevant. I mean, obviously it is. It's how he's going to lose the game. But really, he cares about board control a lot more. If he's controlling the board, then he's dictating the game. So if he has to pay 4 life and maybe even 4 life again to cast a spell, he's more than happy to do that.
All right, so we're shuffling up for game 3. If you're just joining us, I'm Joey Pasco in the booth with Matthias Hunt, coming to you guys live from Philadelphia, where the StarCityGames.com Open Series is 2.5 rounds deep into the Legacy Open. Just over 220 players from the last count that I heard. We've got 8 rounds today.
Yeah, so if you know your cutoffs, we are just under the cutoff for our 9th round, which means that there will be players battling to contention basically all the way through round 8.
Yeah. We should have a lot of exciting matches to bring you guys, especially in the later rounds when the players are trying to fight for a top 8 berth. And Chris is going to lead things off with that turn 1 Delver off of a tropical island.
It's a little an interesting aside. The 2 most recent, as we noted earlier, Todd Anderson, winner of 2 Legacy Opens in the last month with this Esper Deathblade deck that Gerard Fabiano is piloting today. Before we were on camera, in round 2, actually picked up a loss in this tournament. He was defeated by Drew Levin, who was playing Enter the Infinite today. So a little bit of story. We'll see whether or not Todd can rebound from that. Obviously, he knows his deck very well.
Yeah, he took a week off in St. Louis and let another Anderson take down the tournament. Chris Anderson winning with Blue-Black Tezzeret that week, and that's a kind of new deck on the scene. Not necessarily taking things by storm, but it is a very, very cool deck that you can play in Legacy and win with, as Chris Anderson showed us. But Gerard now, turn 1, plays a Misty Rainforest.
And this is that guessing game of, does he play around Stifle or does he play around Wasteland?
Decides to play around the Stifle here.
Yeah, and at least, and I think he's doing that because he has a pair of
And he plays around Wasteland.
And he plays around Wasteland, so he's going to get the basic island. He does have Brainstorms in his hand as well. So remember, Gerard's goal here, especially when Chris has the turn 1 Delver, is he just needs to make sure that he gets to cast spells. Chris is going to cast a lot of spells at 0 and 1 mana. Gerard needs to make sure that the number of spells he casts is somewhere near that. And we got Chris with the blind flip on the Delver of Secrets.
Turn 2, immediately able to flip that Delver with no work.
Yeah, Gerard correctly there got the basic island to play around Wasteland, which as we see Chris does have in his hand.
Yeah, so Insectile Aberration will swing in for 3, knocking Gerard to 16. And Gerard is going to Brainstorm here at, I believe, the end of turn. Sees Deathrite Shaman, Stoneforge Mystic, and Dark Confidant.
Yeah, he'd still, a lot of great cards on 2, and hopefully for Gerard, he'll be able to get to cast one of them. The bigger issue is that Gerard's still a little land light, and lands are kind of the key to this matchup. Gerard can tap out for a 2-drop, but he has to realize there's a very good chance that the card doesn't resolve between Daze, Force of Will, and maybe just a kill spell for it if it's a Stoneforge Mystic or Dark Confidant, some sort of kill spell.
Right. So Brainstorm finishes. He draws a card for the turn. It is the Stoneforge Mystic.
Right, and I imagine we're going to see Gerard shuffle away the remainder of the cards. He wants to just draw. Yeah, he just wants to draw something different.
And so you see a Stifle on that fetch land activation, and Gerard is going to fight over it. He has a Spell Pierce. Chris trying to decide if he wants to Daze, and he does. So he is going to Daze that Spell Pierce. Stifle resolves. Fetch land activation does not, leaving Gerard with just that island tapped.
And the unfortunate part is that takes Gerard's entire turn as well for him.
So Chris with the Insectile Aberration on the attack, knocking Gerard to 12 here.
And here's once again that kind of key to the matchup is whether or not Gerard can cast his spells on time. And right now Chris is doing a great job of basically saying no to that.
Yeah. Tarmogoyf comes down for Chris. We'll get a Tarmo die on that. It looks like we're going to go with that. Well, I'd say 2-3. 2-3.
Yeah. So interestingly, one of the reasons Chris was so aggressive about that fetch land play, first of all, it not only does it fit into his mana denial strategy, but especially when you've seen a person cast a Brainstorm and put 2 cards back on top, it's a great idea to sometimes force them to draw those 2 cards again. Yeah. When you do that, you take in Brainstorm, which is one of the best cards in Legacy, and turn it into 1 blue draw a card. Yeah.
So second copy of Brainstorm for Gerard, resolving right now. And he's in some trouble, facing down 2 pretty big threats.
Yeah, he's going to need some Swords to Plowshares to just pull him up to a spot where he can get enough lands in play. Chris has 5 power in play, and especially with the burn cards that are in Chris's deck, Gerard really can only take 2 more hits from this board.
Yeah, at this point, he's even if he has the Swords to Plowshares, which he may, I think that may be one of the cards in his hand. It could also just be that Stoneforge Mystic that I'm seeing. But he doesn't have any white. That's what I was getting at. Yeah, he doesn't actually have any white sources right now.
There's a lot of things that Gerard needs right now. And that's the thing with Rug Delver is that it forces your opponent, to have a lot of 1-mana spells and the lands to cast them all at the same time. It's very easy for something to go wrong, and when it does, the deck punishes you very, very hard for it.
So a Flooded Strand from Gerard is going to presumably find him that white source. He, let's see, does he play any basic planes?
In his main deck, Gerard has a swamp and an island, but he has no
basic
planes. He's playing a Caracas instead.
So he's going to play right into that wasteland that is on the table.
So this is one-time use mana.
Very likely, unless Chris decides not to use the wasteland, which is unlikely. He is going to go ahead and use that for a Deathrite Shaman. So that will find him white mana, presuming it survives.
Right, so what Gerard's done is rather than trying to fight against Wasteland, he just wants to get this Deathrite to resolve. And then hopefully then the Deathrite Shaman for him will be whatever color mana he needs.
Exactly. So Ponder from Chris finds 3 lands, looks like possibly Basic Mountain, Flooded Strand, and Tropical Island.
Yep. It also has he has a 1 of Thought Scour in his hand, so if he wants to take one of these cards and doesn't like the other 2, it's very possible that he can Thought Scour his way, or he can shuffle one away with his fetch land. This is really he gets to pick one and ship the others if he wants to.
And yeah, he's trying to decide. Looks like he is going to keep. Draws his card for the turn, plays a Volcanic Island. That may have been that other land that I thought was a basic mountain. It was just tough to tell. We could only see the side of it. Tarmogoyf looks like it has grown to a 3/4 and 6 power, coming over to attack Gerard down to 5.
Right, so what Gerard does have going for him right now is that he has Nihil Spellbomb and Swords to Plowshares. One of them can take care of Delver of Secrets. The other one can take care of Tarmogoyf. So theoretically, Gerard does have answers to both creatures on the battlefield.
So that Thought Scour trick that you mentioned happens right there. Chris is going to mill 2 lands, and I believe he found a wasteland. He at least has a wasteland. I don't know if that was the top
he found a
part.
red spell off it.
Okay.
Which is danger for Gerard right now. He took 6 this turn and is down to 5 life. That's a rough tumble that Chris drew.
Okay. So Gerard, for his turn, has a basic island and a Deathrite Shaman as his only permanents. As you mentioned, he has the Nihil Spellbomb, which can deal with the Tarmogoyf, or at least, neutralize it. And he has... You said you think he has a Swords to Plowshares?
I believe I saw Swords to Plowshares in Gerard's
could be
hand.
could be that Stoneforge Mystic, because I keep thinking it's Swords to Plowshares
Well,
too.
without a Swords, Gerard's in a pretty tough position. Because he needs an immediate way to deal with that Delver, and he doesn't have one then without it.
Yeah, no, that's Stoneforge Mystic in his hand.
So he has Vindicate. He doesn't actually have the mana to Vindicate yet. No.
Yeah, he can't. Even playing Wasteland doesn't give him access to Vindicate because he needs black and white, and he has neither.
Right.
He can access one or the
2.
other, right? And so Gerard trying to figure out a line of play that's going to work here. He's going to play that Wasteland.
So you're right. His Nihil Spellbomb, Vindicate, Stoneforge, Mystic. None of those are going to help him right now.
Yeah. Do you just Spellbomb and deal with the Tarmogoyf for a while, and then I guess go down to 2 and hope?
You hope that your next draw is a
burn
Swords to
spell or
Plowshare.
something. Yeah.
Because that issue still has the problem that next turn the Delver will kill him.
So Gerard pondering his options. Not with Ponder the Spell, but just actual pondering.
Yes,
Looks like he's going to Wasteland, yeah. And he's going to use that Deathrite Shaman
to exile, and he's Wastelanding Chris off the red in the hope that he can, that he doesn't get burned out here. What this does mean is he's not going to actually answer either the Tarmogoyf or the Delver of Secrets this turn. He's going to attempt to chump block the Tarmogoyf. With the Stoneforge Mystic, my guess is that he's then getting Umezawa's Jites. He just isn't going to have the mana to cast Batterskull this game.
That looks like the play here. Gerard puts the Jite in the front there, and there you see it. Originally printed in Betrayers of Kamigawa. That card has seen a lot of play since then.
I would say probably the best card out of Betrayers of Kamigawa,
Oh, yeah.
actually.
And at the time, it was in a pre-constructed deck, and as soon as it was clear that that card was as good as it is, those precons sold out everywhere.
For those of you like your Magic history, yeah, the Rat's Nest precon was was worth significantly more than the other ones.
And if you could catch it before it went up, there you see Chris Pikula able to defeat Gerard here. I think there was a handshake, and I think.
Well, he's gonna play Rough Tumble to kill Stoneforge Mystic and then swing. I think the two are talking through the game.
So Chris able to take that match 2-1, but yeah, the Umezawa's Jite, if you were able to catch it on the upswing, you were able to go to the local store and be like, hey, I need all those Rat's Nest precons.
Yeah, so as a result, a lot of players owned a lot of those. The other was Patron of the Nezumi, and I remember I had a fair amount of
many
those.
of those.
It's like, well, why do you have some of these? Be like, well, I also have a lot of Umezawa's Jites.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, I wasn't super greedy. I had opened one Jite in a pack, and I just bought